Hi and welcome back in another episode of the Witcher series. This time the monster Manticore, the last monster from the core game, the one which is, in my opinion, most labor intense, most time consuming, and due to the fact that it has a very hard accessible parts, especially as you can see, you know, on the bottom of the mini, between the lion horse and the bottom of the Manticore itself. The model prime with the black primer from Citadel, and as you can see, we start with the horse underneath, and our base color will be the Eshin gray. We cover the whole horse underneath. However, make sure that the paint you use is properly diluted, as we want the natural black shading going through the paint. I am also using this shade to cover the membrane of the Manticore wings. So we're using that on both sides of the wings. The purpose of that is that the wings itself will be kind of orange red, and we want to achieve a little bit of the transparency effect. So we want to break down that black primer. So before we put the red tones, I want to have a proper background which is gray and white. Now we're gonna mix XV88 with our purple color, and we're gonna use that pretty much 50-50 mix, and we're gonna paint the whole body of our monster. Again, make sure you have a properly diluted paint, not too thick, as we want to have a proper shading after we apply the base color. Some of you were inquiring about the priming process. I think I did show that in one of my earliest video. I think it was Troll. However, in a couple of words, I literally put 2 or 3 very thin layer of spray paint, Chaos Black from Citadel, and for that purpose that should do the job. Next step is the wings muscles, and in that case I use the same combination of those 2 colors, with the only exception that the ratio purple to beige is pretty much 2:1, so 2 parts of the purple and 1 part of the beige XV88, and we paint all the parts of those wings and the mouth as well. Now the fur on Manticore's head, I use the Mourfang brown as a base color, and we simply cover all of the fur at this stage. Try not to put any of that on the previous paint, and again a little bit on the tail and a little bit of the fur on the back legs as well. Now our next step is the horns, and we're gonna paint them with the Steel Legion drab. And once that's done, we're gonna switch to the Waaagh flesh, the green tone, and we're gonna paint the venom tails of our monster. In our next step we're gonna use a little bit of the white scar. We're gonna paint the monster teeth, and then as well we're gonna mix our white with our Eshin gray, and we're gonna start doing the background on the wings membrane. So in a couple of stages we will be adding more white, and we're gonna paint the membrane from both sides with different shades of gray. And again, I'm not covering the whole lot, I'm just painting, as you can see, in a kind of stripes, adding more white in every stage, but putting pretty much nearly white on the edges. So we're gonna get a kind of like a striping effect on that membrane, and that will be our base to put the red tones after that. As you probably know at this stage, the red, you can't make it brighter. You can either add orange or pink, but it's completely changing the shades of red. So the best practice to have a nice red shade is to put good background before that. Brighter the background, then brighter the shade of the red. As you can see earlier on, I put a little bit of the Agrax shades on the fur, and now we put in the soil, which is the Typhus corrosion. If you made any mistake at this point, you can easily correct them. As you can see, I'm doing it now with the with our Eshin gray. So I put a little bit more on the horse itself. As I mentioned, it's very hard to reach some areas, so it might happen that at some painting process you do gonna have some other colors on the horse, so that's the point to fix them. Now the Macragge Blue is the color that I use to paint the claws of our monster, and as well the tips on the wings. The wash, the black wash from Vallejo, is to cover the whole base, including the horse itself as well. And now, using the dry brush, we're gonna do a little bit of work on the horse. So again, we're back to our Eshin gray, and by adding a little bit more white, I stamp the brush into it to have a kind of like a little stain on the horse, which brings the kind of natural white horse fur effect, which I think is pretty cool. As well, you can add a little bit of the beige just to diverse the color a little bit. A grey horse has a color characterized by a progressive depigmentation of the colored hairs of the coat, and this is what we try to achieve. So again, mixing those shades, grey, XV88 and white, and stamp the brush onto the color skin will help to achieve that effect. The final step, we using pretty much pure white, and we repeat the process with stamping the paint on the model. In our next step, we're gonna get back to the wings and the body of the Manticore, and we're gonna use the same mix that we used previously. However, we're gonna be changing the proportion a little bit. So with every layer we're gonna apply, we're gonna be adding a little bit more of the XV88. So we're gonna keep the kind of original tone in the recesses. However, we will be applying the brighter tone on those exposed parts by adding a little bit more XV88. So as you can see now, we use pretty light brown color at this point, and we gently apply that onto the wings muscle, and then we'll be applying that on the body of the Manticore as well. Make sure that your paint again has the right proportion of paint and water, so you're not gonna cover with the too thick paint, as we want to have a nice transition between the recesses. As I mentioned earlier on, this is quite time-consuming process, as this model first of all have a lot to cover. The areas are either very hard to access or they're very tiny, so don't rush. Make sure you're doing it slowly and you cover the right parts of the model, and you're not gonna destroy your previous paint work. As you can see now, I'm adding again a bit more of the XV88, so we're moving from a kind of like a purpley brown to beige brown, and that is the aim of that. Now we'll be adding a little bit of white. As you can see, I do a little bit of the dry brushing just to speed up the process a little bit. And as you can see in some of my latest video, I switched to the makeup sponge, and in those areas that you can access by using this technique, it's bringing a very good effect towards the end, and again it speed up the process a little bit as well. So at this point I add a bit more white into the XV88, and we will be adding more again. So the purpose is that the muscles of the Manticore itself will be very much bright ivory. Again, in the areas like the face, you're not gonna use this sponge because it's too tiny, so you can switch to the dry brushing. But the rest of the body, you can easily go with the makeup sponge. The horn itself, again, the Steel Legion drab with the mixture of white and the dry brushes is good enough to cover those, just to highlight them. Next we're gonna get back to our fur. So first of all, after we applied our wash, we're gonna do dry brushing with our original color, Mourfang brown, and then we will be doing a couple of stages of highlights. So we're gonna use first of all Averland sunset, and we're gonna mix with our original brown, and gently we're gonna do a dry brushing all over that fur of our Manticore. And again we're gonna repeat same process with adding a little bit more, and then we're gonna switch over to the pure Averland sunset, and in our final stage we're gonna add a little bit white into that yellow, and then very gently here and there, just to create a kind of like a brown golden fure on around her head. So this is how the model looks so far, and next we're gonna switch back to the green, and we're gonna cover the venom tail. So in the first step I did a little bit of mixture of green and yellow, and we cover a little bit less and less with every layer, and eventually we add a little bit of the white as well, but just to create a kind of nicer effect. I'm using also the yellow green from Vallejo with a little bit of that paint, just to create a kind of nice green and yellow venom effect on it. The final part of it will be adding a little bit of the green shade. It's a Biel-tan green from Citadel. Now mixing the black and blue for the monster claws. As you can see earlier on, we put a bit of wash on it, so just to highlight those, we're gonna be using this mixture. The next step is adding a little bit of white, just to bring the tone a little bit lighter. And in the final stage you can do a wee tiny line of very light gray or white on the top of it, just to do kind of like a light shiny light effect. The pure white color again, some small corrections of the monster teeth. Then the eyes, obviously if you have the dry brushing, might happen that you might do the corrections of the black eyes, and then we put in a wee tiny dot of the eyes with the pure white scar. And as I mentioned earlier on, tiny little touch with the white on the monster gloves, and tiny little white touch on the tail as well. And as you can see, we got to our wings membrane, and first of all we're gonna cover it with the Mephiston red, again very water diluted paint. We don't want that too thick, we want that paint to nicely cover the membrane. However, we want to have the proper shading. That's why we did all that process with putting the white and gray. Also put a little bit red on the base on the places when the blood's gonna come out. It's gonna be very, very bloody miniature, as this is the last core game monster. Next we're gonna use Trollslayer orange, and we will be applying that in a couple of stages. So the first part is to mix the Mephiston red with the Trollslayer orange with like 2:1 proportion, and then cover a little bit more, again, you know, very watery paint, and we will be adding more and more orange in every layer we're gonna apply, trying to achieve the kind of effect that we're gonna have very red on the sides of each membrane, and then pretty much bright orange on the center of each of that part. Again, it's quite some work. As you can see, the wings are very large. As well, at this point you might put a little bit red on the Manticore mouth. As you can see now, I'm moving to pretty much pure orange. And again, every layer you're gonna apply, make sure you move that orange, bright orange, towards the center of each membrane part. At this point I add a little bit of the white as well to our orange color, just to bring the orange a little bit up. I want to have a kind of effect that it's a little bit transparent, so that was the purpose. A little bit of the orange as well on the eyes, again very transparent, so we want to have a kind of like a orange shade on those eyes there. I put a little bit of that mixture on those guts that's coming out from the horse, but again we'll be putting a bit more blood towards the end. Now the pure black, again properly watered, so we cover the nose, which I want to have it kind of like a cat dark nose. And then we'll switch over to the lead belcher, the kind of like a dark silver color, and we painted the horseshoe, and we're gonna highlight that with the pure silver from Citadel, literally on the edge of it. The red tone shade from Army Painter, which apply a little bit on those parts when the blood's coming out from the freshly killed prey. And now we're gonna apply some grass, so PVA glue, apply here and there whenever you want the grass to stick out. And then the grass which I show you, I literally put quite a lot of it, stick it to that glue, and then remove the excess of the grass by using some old brush. So you can shape it while the glue is still wet. You can shape it with the brush. You can remove it whenever you don't want it. So make sure you apply the glue only in the areas that the grass has to stay, and this way you control where the grass gonna be and what part of the base is gonna be free of that. So this is the model at this point. The grass is pretty much applied. The rim itself, again German grey, as all my models from this board game. And then we're gonna apply the blood for the blood god. I have decided to put quite a lot to have a kind of like a bloody effect. Again, most of the models I did apply have a very little of the blood, very tiny, so in this case I decided to do it exactly opposite. Now the shiny effect, which is the technical art code, so I did apply that onto the eye of the horse and the monster and the venom tail, just to have a kind of like a shiny effect. So this is it, the model is ready. I do hope you like the final effect, and I hope you do like the painting process, and I hope that helped you to get into the painting. I heard in some comments that some of you just start learning by watching those videos, and that give me motivation to create more content. So if you do like that one, please give the thumb up, and don't forget to subscribe the channel. Let's feed that YouTube algorithm. And as I mentioned, this is the last mini from the core game. However, I purchased all in one, so there's a couple more boxes to go. So this is not end of the series. There will be more monsters on the channel. Just give me some time. I will put some more videos in the future. So again, thanks for watching, and I should see you soon at the next Witcher video.